share about the health system in Tanzania. And before doing that, I want to just point out our education system in Tanzania. As many other countries, we have elementary school, which is that's my son. So, elementary school is 7 years, and then we have 4 years ordinary level secondary school, and then 2 years advanced level secondary school, and then university. And unlike the education we had in the United States, where when you are in elementary school, you are granted to go up to high school, in Tanzania, you have to, every student has to pass the test to go to the next step. If you fail, you're done. So elementary student, like 50% will end up being elementary educated, elementary school educated because they couldn't go through the test. Next place. So as far as our healthcare system is concerned, we have a dispensary and then go up to healthcare and then hospital and then referral hospital. The dispensary is basically targeting people living in the village. And most of the time, the charge for this dispensary will be the rural medical aid, who, as I said, most likely will be the person who could pass the test in the middle school. And then the health center will be targeting people in several villages, which we call one. One is that it comprises of 3 to 4 villages. And in charge for the health center will be a medical assistant. And his education will be all level. It's like a middle school here in the state. And then the hospital will be targeting population within the district and the region. And the charge of the hospital will be a medical officer or assistant medical officer. And the medical officer will basically have an MD degree, while the AMOs will have advanced diploma in medicine. And the referral hospitals will be serving the whole country, ideally, but probably not everybody can reach the hospital. And most of the time, they'll be run by specialized MDs, and they'll be HIV hospital director. So while we were in Tanzania, we were able to visit some of these facilities, and one of them was the Iambi dispensary. And this is the health Iambi dispensary. But typically, the dispensary will be a single building with 2 or 3 rooms, and will serve the whole village. And on the left, you can see that this is the Iambi Hospital, and on the top left panel, you can see Iambi signs, and these are the typical buildings for the hospital. And you can see the lower left side, the outpatient is really outpatient. You stay outside when you use the service. And this is one of the examples for the referral hospitals, and these are both owned by private Lutheran Church. On the left panel is the Lutheran Medical Center, that's also known as Seriani, and on the right side is head of Lutheran Hospital, which is very equipped, even in their own trucks for transportation. And this one is on the left is KCMC, which is Kilimanjaro Christian Medical Center, is owned by Lutheran Church also, and is located in Motion, in the city, Mount Kilimanjaro, in the background. And the Midwest Hospital is located in Dar es Salaam. It's one of the, that's where I was trained as medical for my medical education. And I just want to point out that in 1995, before I left Tanzania to go to Japan for my further training, there were only 3 referral hospitals, and these were KCMC in there. And then 20 years, almost 20 years, we just added only 3 referral hospitals. And you can see, in fact, most of the country is not accessible to these referral hospitals. But before I close my talk, I just wanted to point out one important observation at Iambi. All hospitals in Tanzania are located in cities, but Iambi is located in a village. This is called Nkungu village. And this really transformed into a lot of our disadvantages because also the hospitals understaffed because a lot of health personnel don't want to go live in the villages. So I would just want to say that any help for this hospital will be helpful. And lastly but not least, like in many other countries, the politicians are also controlling the health system in Tanzania. And most of the time, they don't get it right. That's why I put this statement by the president, who proposed to buy tricycles for ambulance for carrying pregnant mothers in a country where the roads are not even permissible for the medical people. So thank you very much.
So on Monday we enjoyed chapel service with our hosts at Iambi, and we toured the facilities. And Monday evening in our little cottage, we were, again, a somewhat discouraged group, seeing that the needs were so great and wondering what we were being asked to do. And we went back to our Lutheran basics. You bloom where you're planted. God has brought you here. You're not being asked to do any more than what you can. So we decided that our main job this week that we had with them was to listen and learn, to build a relationship, because it is fully our intention to continue a relationship with this little hospital, to accept what we heard, that if they said they had a need, they wanted this goal, we would help them achieve that. It was not our place to tell them how to run their hospital. Of course we couldn't know that. But to contribute what we could and to commit to going forward together. So we divided into teams, mainly based on our own expertise, and we dispersed throughout the hospital the next day or so, just really going deeper, trying to understand what would help them, what would equip them to do their mission. Right.
This is a picture of Zaria. Zaria is actually a Muslim girl that we came across outside of the hospital. She was being treated outside in this area because of some cultural differences between tribes and religions and that sort of thing, and because they were poor and they had absolutely no money. When I first came across her, what she has in this swelling around her eye can be called a periorbital cellulitis. In the States, that's an emergency. If it gets out of hand, you can actually lose your vision. Many times we would operate on that to try and clear that infection. And so in my zest and concern for trying to take care of her, we started to try to make some plans as to what to do to try to help her. It turns out actually, in the States, that might be staph or strep. But actually what you're looking at here is one of the interesting problems we came across to deal with here. This is an anthrax infection. And anthrax actually is endemic in the cattle there. They have no veterinarians. This isn't the anthrax you read about that's used as a bioterror weapon. That's a completely different thing. But this is an organism that's endemic in cattle, and that the children have to take care of the cattle as part of their duties for the family. They're always out hurting them, and she scratched her face and she got it in her cheek there. And it was quite serious until she got going on antibiotics. And here you can see she got much better through the week that we were there. We actually had an anthrax outbreak in the village. It was tremendously helpful to have Gasper with us, who can speak the language, and Gasper discerned that actually her next door neighbor, another girl, had the same problem, that eventually made their way 10, 20 kilometers to the hospital to be treated. There's a little child with measles. This is one of the teachers and minister from one of the parishes and church nearby. Many years ago, he had a motorcycle accident, and although he had healed, he has tremendous wrist pain and an unstable wrist. And of course, when they hear that the American doctors are in town, or somebody with some expertise, everybody wants to get some care. And so he came over to the hospital one day and got an x-ray, I think for the equivalent of about 10 or 12 US dollars. And we were able to examine him and try and tell him at least what could be done at some point in the future, certainly not there. This is a little boy who was tending cattle and got into a scuffle with the cattle and broke his forearm, his distal radius. And actually we put him in a cast that day. He was fractures really hurt. The lining of the bone is very densely innervated, and it lets you know when you have a fracture. And one of the best things we can do for people when they have a broken bone is get them in a cast or splint. It provides tremendous pain relief, and that was one thing that we could provide for that little guy.
Even though they had equipped dental facilities at the hospital, nothing worked. The chair they did have for 5 years didn't go up or down or back and forth. So we were sort of limited in what we could do, which is what I expected anyways. We were able to see some patients and do some basic dentistry, some extractions. There's Hillary again helping with that. And Pastor Kern taking some pictures. So they did, we were able to do some procedures, but just it was a little frustrating because nothing worked. George had a little episode.
I toured the laboratories. This is a picture of the chief tech who's on the left and her assistant, actually paid by the government. There's an incubator in the background, but the incubator doesn't work. This is the sole microscope. They actually have 2 microscopes, but this is the one they were using. It's basically a laboratory that does microscopy for its laboratory diagnostic procedures. This is the centrifuge they had, a little shaker that they could do serology to do simple diagnostic tests. They have malaria, so they do a rapid test for malaria. They have HIV, they do rapid tests for HIV. They have TB, they do lots of TB smears using that microscope to do TB diagnosis. I threw this in here just to give you an idea of the prices. Craig mentioned the cost of an X-ray. The cost of a urinalysis is 1,000 shillings, or about 67 cents. This is the Iambi dispensary. You saw that. I'm including this because they also have a laboratory. This is their lab. There's a microscope. And do anybody know what this thing is on the lower right? That is a hand crank centrifuge. So that's how they do it. This place had no electricity. To give you an idea of what this hospital is, Iambi is aspiring to, they will never get here, but just to show you what the labs are like at this hospital. This is Arusha Hospital, Lutheran Medical Center in Arusha. They have built better equipment, a little cleaner, but not much more stuff, actually. They have a hood, they have working incubators. Haydom is a little better equipped. They actually have a way to do electrolyte analysis. This is an electrolyte machine. They have a device that will do a counting of cells, so they can actually not do it manually through a microscope. And they have a flow cytometer to do management of HIV patients. We'll move this on to George. While George is getting to the microscope, I'll just say that one of the things I would like to do is help them find some of this equipment, help them improve the management of